Tonight, it's a fact. Russia is already not trying, but actually meddling in our 2018 midterm elections. Apparently not too frightened after what they did the last go around. President Trump, he won't say it, but today his top intel team all said they are. This is Sarah Sanders clashes with reporters again over the press itself. Then all the president's suspects, Manafort on trial, Cohen and Stone both in the crosshairs of one Robert Mueller. That is, the president continues to lash out. A former federal prosecutor, he'll help make sense of it all. Plus, Attorney General candidate Zephyr Teachout, she joins us live. That's to talk about her run to become New York's next Attorney General and how much of that job could focus on our president. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you for joining us tonight on yet another busy news day. Well, this evening, I should say today, the White House looked to get serious when it comes to Russian meddling in the 2018 midterm elections. And they did. That is depending on who was doing the talking. Their first major conclusion: Russian meddling is not a theoretical problem this November. It's already happening. The intel chiefs, with unanimity, confirming their earlier suspicions were correct, and Russia is not standing down after meddling in 2016. The chiefs from the FBI, Homeland Security, and every other entity were both clear and, at the same time, somewhat vague. Crystal clear that Russia already meddling and trying to meddle even more in the midterms, but less clear on what form those threats are taking and what the White House is actually doing about it to combat it.
In regards to Russian involvement in the midterm elections, we continue to see a pervasive messaging campaign by Russia to try to weaken and divide the United States.
Our democracy itself is in the crosshairs. Free and fair elections are the cornerstone of our democracy, and it has become clear that they are the target of our adversaries.
It's important to understand this is not just an election cycle threat. Our adversaries are trying to undermine our country on a persistent and regular basis, whether it's election season or not. Make no mistake, the scope of this foreign influence threat is both broad and deep. The reality is it's going to take all of us working together to hold the field, because this threat is not going away. As I have said consistently, Russia attempted to interfere with the last election and continues to engage in malign influence operations to this day.
Now, those words of warning, a far cry from what we heard from the president after his meeting with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. The two of them shoulder to shoulder. This is what the president said, quote, "I don't see why Russia would have meddled," a position he later tried to walk back. So we've heard the warnings about Russian meddling from the intel chiefs. Now compare their message to what we've heard from Sarah Sanders and the official White House response to Russian midterm meddling.
The president has said other people also may have been involved in the efforts to interfere with the 2016 election. Did any of the people that we saw up here, has there been any evidence from the intelligence community that there were others besides Russia that were involved in election meddling?
Certainly we know there are others, and we know that there are others that are considering making attempts in 2018, which is what our focus is.
Russian meddling, not the only moment of today's press briefing worthy of a review. The role and respect for the press also on the agenda today.
Immigration is incredibly complex as...
Okay, you saw Ivanka Trump there. She gave an interview where she said the family separation crisis was, in her words, a low point for the Trump administration and her time in it. She also said she doesn't think of the press as the enemy of the American people. Now, this is not only the first daughter, she has an official role in this White House. So here she is taking that position, which completely contradicts not only her boss, but her father, who has called the press the enemy many, many times. So at the end of the briefing today, CNN's Jim Acosta, who was heckled and harassed repeatedly covering Trump events as recently, I should say, as earlier this week, he directly asked Sanders if she would follow the first daughter's lead here when she said, no, the press, of course, is not the enemy in America. I'll give you a hint. Sanders didn't.
I think it would be a good thing if you were to say right here at this briefing that the press, the people who are gathered in this room right now, doing their jobs every day, asking questions of officials like the ones you brought forward earlier, are not the enemy of the people.
It's ironic, Jim, that not only you and the media attack the president for his rhetoric when they frequently lower the level of conversation in this country. Repeatedly, the media resorts to personal attacks without any content other than to incite anger. The media has attacked me personally on a number of occasions, including your own network, said I should be harassed as a life sentence, that I should be choked. ICE officials are not welcomed in their place of worship, and personal information is shared on the internet. When I was hosted by the Correspondents Association, of which almost all of you are members of, you brought a comedian up to attack my appearance and call me a traitor to my own gender. In fact, as I know, as far as I know, I'm the first press secretary in the history of the United States that's required Secret Service protection. The media continues to ratchet up the verbal assault against the president and everyone in this administration, and certainly we have a role to play, but the media has a role to play for the discourse in this country as well.
And you did not say in the course of those remarks that you just made that the press is not the enemy of the people.
I've addressed this question. I've addressed my personal feelings. I'm here to speak on behalf of the president. He's made his comments clear.
Let me bring in the two guys who do the show with me every night here to get into this. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and Andrew Whitman, senior political correspondent. Let's do this in two parts. Today, every intelligence chief said, and they only mentioned one country, by the way, that Russia is attempting to sow discord by continuing to meddle in all of our elections. The president, shoulder to shoulder with him in Helsinki, knew all this, and he backed down here like things I can't even say on TV. Today, you have his own intel chiefs speaking with as clear a voice as they can, and his own press secretary can't basically double down on it and even agree with it. The president, the only thing that so far I've heard, unless you guys hear differently, that what does he want to do to protect the integrity of our elections? He wants to have voter ID cards, which is trying to suppress the vote here in poorer communities when it's all said and done. Then we get into what is the most bizarre chapter I've ever heard. If anybody looks at the Bill of Rights, we're supposed to have a free press. You don't have a free press in Russia. I don't know, man. If you saw the whole exchange, and we played a good chunk of it, of what Acosta was trying to get, just the press secretary to say that the media is not the enemy of the people. She talks about, yes, she was harassed by a restaurant wouldn't serve her. CNN didn't do that. Jenna Wolf, or whatever the comedian's name is, she said those things. CNN didn't say they wanted to choke her or harass her or whatever else. The conflation here and the aiding and abetting of a war on the idea that we shouldn't report things, Dom, first of all, I've never seen anything like this, but I couldn't believe the day that Ivanka Trump even said what is, obvious, that the mainstream media is not the enemy of the American people. The press secretary couldn't even say that.
Well, Richard, let me just put this in perspective. She could not say it because if she did say it, she'd be fired probably that same day by the President of the United States. I'm not saying that it's right. She is doing exactly what the President wants her to do. Richard, we have to reach the point where we have to be honest with ourselves. We are looking at in real time a presidential administration that appears to be going down in smoke. By the day, wait, Richard, let me just finish. By the day. And they are gasping for air. They are doing anything and everything to stay relevant, to attack, to hide. And the way you do that is the press. And that's what they're doing every day.
But today, the first daughter and the White House advisor says, of course it's not. And it's shameful, the idea of separating, forget the fact that she talks a good game, she didn't do anything about it, but leave that aside. Right. But there clearly is enough daylight where she can say it. I don't know. I think Sanders is there. And you know what? I applaud Acosta for saying this today, but it's time the whole press corps did something about it.
Yeah, except the entire press corps is not devoted to that cause. I mean, there's about a third of the press corps in the White House that is from conservative media outlets.
But be clear,
whether it's
Andrew,
Fox News or Breitbart.
she was talking not just about CNN,
No,
and
no,
not just MS,
absolutely.
ABC, CBS, NBC. I'm sure us and the rest.
Absolutely. And the thing is, both parts of this conversation are connected to the president's own personal insecurities. He's so insecure about the results of the 2016 election that he can't even account for the fact that Russia might have helped him over the edge, and he can't back down from his feud with the press because the press reports stuff that he doesn't like. He's so insecure about his election results and about the news that he knows is coming about his actions before he became president and his actions, let's be honest, covering up or obstructing the process after he became president, that he can't back away from either one of those. And that puts Sanders in a difficult position. Now, look, my respect for Sanders, that went away a long time ago. Like, frankly, there are some jobs that aren't worth having if you have to put up with certain conditions. If Sarah Sanders has to continue to bury the truth in order to deal with all this, she probably shouldn't be press secretary.
She lied about a bin Laden intelligence report yesterday. A complete debunk thing. I'm not even getting into facts and lies. But we have our White House. I know this isn't a newsflash. Our White House is saying that when we report on what they do and they don't like it, we are an enemy to the American people. And for me, guys, I am scared, and I said this last night, something bad is going to happen, and this White House will have encouraged it. So to me, it was a surreal day in what has been a surreal 2 years. All right, now during the campaign, candidate Trump, he promised America he would get the best people for his team. Now, a year and a half into his administration, Manafort's on trial. Michael Cohen already seemingly ready to flip. Roger Stone being squeezed by Mueller. Former federal prosecutor will join me to try and sort through the chaos of just the past week and all the president's suspects. Stay with us.